Hey guys, welcome back to the Lights Off podcast. It's been a minute being on here, but so good to be back with the sis as well. It's been a long time coming, but we got here. But for those who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey Chanel, thanks for having me. Kia ora everyone, my name is Ruahei. I come from a little place called Omaio in the Bay of Plenty. Was born and bred down there. Went to school down there. My whānau moved up to Warkworth and I did all my secondary school years at Mahurangi College. At the moment, I'm working for the Ministry of Justice over at the North Shore District Court. I play my rugby down at College Rifles. I also play for the Auckland Storm and the Black Ferns.
Very cool, very nice. We'll touch on your the town that you came up in. So, being in a small town and then moving obviously to Warkworth for that. How was that growing up in a small town, then coming to what I guess they call it the Big Smoke?
Yeah, it was like the complete opposite to where I'm living now in Auckland. Omaio is like an hour away from the closest town. So our closest town is Opotiki. The community that I grew up in was really rural and really isolated, really small. But like most small communities, everyone's whānau and everyone treats each other like whānau. So we were really lucky in that sense. My siblings and I, we grew up in a Māori community. So we went to kohanga and kura kaupapa and had we were really lucky with our upbringing in that sense that we were always down at the marae or, you know, with our grandparents or all the different kaumātuas, aunties and uncles and cousins all over the place. So when we moved to Warkworth, it was like the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It was my first time learning in English and being in a community that, you know, we didn't have any whānau or anything like that. It encouraged me and my siblings to, I guess, be a bit more independent instead of relying on, you know, whānau and stuff like that. Yeah, it was completely the opposite. Like there were so many things that you don't realize happen in towns that, you know, don't happen out in the wops.
Yeah.
But then, you know, when we came down to Auckland and started playing rugby, we met all these awesome people, and a lot of them weren't from Auckland. They were from other small places throughout Aotearoa. So it was really cool to see that, you know, we had come here for a reason, you know, for work, for study, rugby or whatever, but we weren't the only ones who were small town kids.
Yeah. How old were you when you guys moved?
I was 12. Yeah. So we moved and then I just turned 12 and Kitty was 10.
Yeah.
That wasn't too bad. Like, I guess we moved to our school. There was only about 80. I think there was 80 of us at our school back home. And that was actually the biggest school.
Oh, wow.
So we thought we were at a big school. And then when we moved up north, my mum sent us to Mahurangi Christian School because it was the only school where Kitty and I could still be together. And we thought that school was big and it had a roll of like 120 kids. So we were freaking out. And then we went off to college. They had like over 1,000 kids. Then when we were coming down to Auckland for sports, people were saying like, oh yeah, there's these schools with, you know, 2,000 kids and this and that. And we were like, what the hell? It's just, you know.
Yeah.
Couldn't comprehend that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just there's 3 of you, is it?
There's 6 of us.
6?
Yeah, there's 6 of us, but the other 3, they're way older.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And there's other than you and your sister, like Kitty, any of the other ones play sport, or is just mainly you guys?
All of us, so all 6 of us played rugby at some point.
Yeah.
But currently I'm the only one still playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where did that I guess interest in rugby come from?
I don't know, to be honest. Like when we were young, growing up at home, we would always, you know, like play bull rush, play rugby on the marae. It was just real normal like that. And we always played soccer growing up.
Yeah.
And like my parents would drive us all over the bloody countryside, hours and hours, because we lived so far away from places.
Yeah.
But we didn't really start playing rugby until I think I was 12 maybe.
Oh,
Our older sister, Edina, she came home and she joined the rugby team at school.
yeah.
And so my dad made Kitty and I play. So we all played
Yeah.
for our high school. And yeah, that's kind of how we got into it, really.
Yeah.
And yeah.
You know, when you said you moved up here and you started to learn English and that, was it like because where you're from, they pretty much only spoke te reo?
Um, like you speak English. There's definitely English spoken down there. But just in our upbringing, like my mum, she only really spoke Māori to us,
That's
and
so
we only
cool.
spoke Māori at school, and so we could speak English, but it was really poor.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say we could spell, but we actually couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so we were pretty clueless, to be honest.
So when growing up, you guys would have like had out learned more about your culture and that. So talk us through obviously your culture, the Indigenous people of NZ. How much like does your culture mean to you, and like how grateful are you for your parents for bringing you up in the culture to a point where you like really know and learn more and more about it?
Yeah, we were really lucky with our upbringing through kohanga and through school. We were brought up like deeply embedded in not only our culture but also the teachings, the stories, the songs of my mum's tribe. So we were raised in Omaio, which is in Te Whānau Wāpanui. So everything that we learned and everything that I know connects me not only back to my Māori tanga, but also back to my mum's people. I guess to be Māori and to be, part of being a Māori and being a proud Māori is knowing who you are and where you come from. It's such a big part of our culture. And I'm really fortunate that I know exactly who I am and where my whakapapa stems from. And I think that my upbringing, our faith, our teachings has everything to do with that. And I know that a lot of people think that being raised in, like kura kaupapa systems, wharekura systems, sometimes there's no benefit when you come into, our modern world, the world that we all live in. I disagree. I think that you can have a foot in both worlds and that there's benefits to each. And there's heaps of adults out there now who were born and raised and came through those ways of schoolings that are thriving now.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely love your culture. Sometimes I get mistaken for I'm like, oh, I wish. But yeah, I'm proud Samoan, but I do love the Māori culture. So no, that's cool. Obviously moving into when you came to the 09, and you played through secondary schools. When was the point? Was it at high school and that you realized, oh, maybe I do want to really take this footy seriously and like perhaps aim to look at making some rep teams, knowing when you finish high school you can actually go to club, like you can progress, where some sports in high school you can't. What was the point for you that you realized, oh no, I might stick at this?
The point, so when I was in my last year of high school, my sister and I, Kitty, we started playing for college rifles. Unfortunately, back then, girls rugby was nowhere near as popular as it is now. And
100%.
there was no, real talk, there was no secondary school competition in our province, North Harbour, and there hadn't been for a few years. So we came down to college rifles to play 15s because there was nothing else. And College Rifles is so lucky. It has such a rich history of great female rugby players. It has so many black ferns. And so we rocked down to club and we were playing, alongside Charlene, Gub now, Doris Tawhatiao, Emma Jensen, Anna Richards was our coach, Claire Richardson, the list honestly goes on. And it was like a whole new level of inspiration being around players who were who had given so much to their country, to their provinces, and to our club. And Kitty and I just wanted to be like them.
Yeah.
And that's why that's when that fire really was ignited. And when we kind of started pursuing rugby as a real like a goal, something that we really wanted to achieve.
Talk us through that club, because it's a really great club. I've been fortunate to play there as well. Some of my best years were there as well, and I know what you mean about being surrounded by some of the greats, because I remember when I rocked up to my first one and I was like, oh my gosh. It was like because I think I was playing first five in Harbour, in the Harbour region, and then going over there, and then they're like, oh, the first five is like Anna Richards. I was like, yeah, all good. I'm just gonna just pump my brakes and just sit at the back. But man, just being amongst them, man, I learned so much. I just wanted to be like a sponge and just like, oh yeah, cool. I was like a little kid, like in a candy store, right? Like, but what was it like for you when you rocked up and you got there, and did you even know about those players before you went there, or you kind of just learned about them?
We knew about Anna. We didn't know as much about Anna though, as we obviously do now. I think it was really hard to know who was in the Black Ferns, because none of their games were ever advertised. They were barely ever on TV. So the hype that exists around those teams now, you can't even compare it. So it really embarrasses me to say that we went into our first season at Rifles and we didn't know
who you're playing with.
We didn't know who we were playing with. And it wasn't until we walked into the club room and we saw all the faces of all those girls, all our Black Ferns around the top of the bar, that we really knew the history, the proud history that our club has, and the rich history and the strength that our women's program has had for years and years. Going down to the first season, it was so fun. Well, every season there's fun, but I mean, like those early days especially, playing alongside, some real greats, like so many players that you just, like you say, you want to be a sponge, you want to learn so much from them on and off the field. They're such amazing women, and I honestly wish that people who follow rugby could know these women like I know them, because they're not only great rugby players, but they're really awesome people. They're usually really great at whatever they do outside of rugby as well. They have really successful careers, and they sacrifice so much, and they never ever complained. They never complained about anything. They just rolled up their sleeves and got on with whatever was going on.
No, 100%. Obviously, like there's all different clubs and stuff that you could choose from, and that obviously you and Kitty chose to go to Rifles. Following from back then and then to now, what's the culture like at Rifles, and how has that impacted you wanting to stay? Obviously, people talk about loyalty to a club. What is it about that club that gets you to keep going back to College Rifles?
I'd say it's like anywhere where people want to continue to go back again and again. It's the people. ever since I started playing rugby at Rifles, our club has been one of the few clubs in Auckland that has always 100% supported women's rugby, and we're treated basically the same as our Prems team, which is, you know, a luxury that I know that some of my my friends from other clubs have had to really fight for. So it's nice to play for a club where you're actually acknowledged. The culture over the years has probably stayed the same, to be honest. Like, everyone who puts on their Rifles jersey, everyone who comes through college Rifles, plays for the T-Birds and the Falcons, is so proud. I think the word is, you're so proud to play alongside your mates. You're more than just, you know, you're more than just a team. You're your sisters, and you put your body on the line for each other all the time. It's a place where you're never turned away, regardless of whether or not you can play or you're injured, or, you know, like, you're always welcome back. And that's why I love my club, and I'll never leave, and I'll always be proud of being from College Rifles and being a T-Bird.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. But you're getting me excited. I'm getting itchy feet to come back. Talk us through, obviously after you play club one, but then for those that don't know, obviously the next path would be to move into your province. So obviously Auckland Storm would have been the next step. Firstly, when did you make the Auckland Storm for the first time, and what were the emotions and stuff when you finally cracked Auckland Storm? For those who don't know, obviously that's the one, just a team just under Black Ferns. So obviously, and Auckland's got a massive pool of players to choose from. So how was that for you, making the squad for the first time?
Yeah, Kitty and I started playing club rugby in 2013, and we were both lucky to make the Storm in 2013. I played one game for the Storm in my first season. I debuted in New Plymouth against Taranaki, and I got about 10 minutes on the wing. Yo,
let's go.
It was actually pretty scary. Like, every game that season, I was DD, which I honestly didn't mind. I was injured most of the season, so I turned up to every training, and I was rehabbing, running along the sidelines, watching the girls train, watching the girls, you know, play at games and warm up. And the team back then was really, really different to the team now. We had heaps and heaps of old players, and it was, you know, they really carried that. We talk about the Storm legacy. They carried that legacy, and you were too scared to put a foot wrong or say anything, and so you just kind of got on with it and followed their lead. It was honestly scary. That's the, to tell you the honest truth, that was my first season. When I came back the following season, though, I think just having a bit more confidence in myself to, you know, be okay with all those old heads, and be supported by all of them, even though they walked and lived and breathed the Storm legacy all the time. They always had your back. And that's a legacy that we try to uphold and maintain, and that mana that those players had, and every player that's worn the Storm jersey, it's something that now we try to demonstrate to our new players coming through, so that when our time comes to hang up the boots, and, you know, they can continue that legacy for years to come.
Out of all your storm seasons, Is there one in particular that stands out as probably most memorable to yourself?
Yeah, my most memorable Storm season was definitely 2015 for a few reasons. That was my that was the last time we won, 2015. Another reason why that season stands out is Mele Hufanga set a record. She's got the most tries scored out of the men's and women's in the NPC season. So that was real cool. I think out of everyone in our team, we had like all but one person make the Blackfern squad.
Oh, yeah.
For selection. It was really fun. And then not long after that, I got injured, so that was dumb. But I never got to play with a lot of those players ever again.
Okay, yeah.
Because I missed seasons with injury. So
Yeah.
that's the main reason why that was my favorite season, because there's so many players that I played with, and I didn't even realize it was my last time playing with them. And if I knew that, I would have had more parties, but you know.
Let's go. And then obviously after Storm, there's obviously Blackfern, which is like the pinnacle in women's rugby. Firstly, congratulations for making the squad again this time round. With the Blackferns, if you can call, you probably remember the first time you got that call to make the squad. Talk us through that. Actually, before you do, can I be honest? The first time I saw that you made it, I was I don't know if I was here in Oz or here, but I teared up when you made it, only because I've obviously been following your your journey and stuff, and I remember saying, Dad, Lou made it, and then he's like, I always knew she would. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she made it. Like, not can't believe it, but it was like it's been a long time coming.
It was pretty. I couldn't believe it. When I got the call in, I had been named in the team. My first feeling was excitement, because moments after I got off the phone, Kitty got called to say that she was also in the team. So it was really special that we got to share, my moment.
Yeah,
I got to share that with her. I think, making the team was cool, but doing it alongside, your own family makes it even more special. But I honestly couldn't believe it. And when I got the call and I got in the team and we started, preparing for our games, I wasn't expecting to be named. I wasn't expecting to get any game time at all. I went in with the mindset that I never ever thought in my wildest dreams that I would get into that team, especially after all the injuries that I'd had. I'd honestly been content with just playing club. Because that's where my heart was, and even making the Storm again after coming back from injury, that was honestly like such a thrill for me, and I never thought that I would play at high level rugby ever. So to make the Black Ferns was a legit dream. And then to debut, but also to start on debut as well, was I actually couldn't believe it.
Can you remember your debut, or was it like?
Yes, of course. That's one of my favorite games, is my debut, because it was so special. Like, you go into the game with absolutely no expectations, because it's a moment that only happens once and you'll never ever get it back ever again, your debut. I got to debut in Australia, down in Sydney, in front of my sisters, my aunties and my cousins who live over in Australia. They travelled down to Sydney, and my partner, he flew over to Aussie and surprised me, so that was really cool. But debuting is, it's something that only happens once. It's so special, and I love when when our new caps debut, and we have like a little kaupapa in our team where, you know, after milestone games and after your debut as well, you get to talk about, you know, what it meant to you. And it's really cool hearing the different journeys that everyone takes to get to that moment. You know, the different people that they acknowledge. Some of them have, you know, not many words to say. Some of them have heaps to say, but regardless of it, it's a special moment, whether you get to debut here or abroad.
Yeah. What was it like doing the national anthem and the haka for the first time?
The national anthem, especially on my debut, was hard. I tried my best not to cry, and I didn't cry, but I also didn't sing the words hard out because I knew I would cry. And then you go straight from the national anthem into the haka, and it's so powerful and it has so much mana and it's so grounding, and you forget all about the game. It's so cool. Like, your whole team's there, not just 1 to 15, it's 1 to 23, and even our DDs on the sideline, you know, they do it with us from the side, and we probably dedicate as much time to the haka as we do to training.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time learning the correct pronunciation, the actions, the movements, the story behind our haka, you know, who wrote it. And it's a haka that no one else gets to perform. It was especially written for us. And we're really privileged, and we get to honour of performing that each time and laying down that challenge each time before we play. So I love doing the haka before each game. It grounds me.
Maybe a bit biased with this, but I think the Black Ferns have one of the best team cultures in the world. Like, obviously very biased. No, but you hear it from other athletes as well around the world that there's something different about the Black Ferns. But what's the culture like for you being a part of that team? From when, I guess, when you first went in and even to now, has it changed? Or talk us through that culture.
So from when I first came into the team in 2018 till now, the culture has changed heaps. We've had new captains, obviously, so like leadership's going to change, or leadership styles and stuff's going to change there, but the values, the legacy that are so fundamental to our team have stayed the same. With the professionalism and the contracting that's come from New Zealand Rugby, I guess there's more of an expectation to be what our team calls a 24/7 Black Fern. So, you know, we go to camps, we go on tour, and we represent the Black Ferns. But away from there, when we're in our provinces, when we're at home, when we're away, like, we're still Black Ferns. And so we're reminded of those values, I guess, and upholding those standards when we're away from everyone. This year, our leadership team have done a lot of work, I guess, within our team culture, so that it can be a lot more open, honest, and transparent. And what can I say? I'm really excited to see how the groundwork that's been put in, especially this year, with making it a more inclusive team culture, how that's going to play out on the field, because I know it's probably going to take us to another level. And I think the trust that has been created between players and management, it's a certain level of trust that hasn't existed while I've been in the team. Our coach tells us all the time that with the World Cup coming up, that we're not here to defend it. We're going to win it.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting, especially after not being able to play international rugby for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Having new players coming in, old players coming back, a bigger squad, the challenges of traveling during COVID. I think our culture is going to be the thing that keeps us together.
Yeah.
And yeah, pretty exciting. Everyone's going to get even closer than what we already are.
Yeah, that's so cool. With your time with Black Ferns, is there a particular test match or campaign, I guess, that has kind of stood out for you so far?
Yeah, I guess all of them stand out for different reasons.
Yeah.
The last campaign that we played, each year we're really lucky we get to play Australia. We get to play a couple of games against Australia, the Laurie O'Reilly trophy. Probably the most memorable tour for me was the end of year tour in 2018, I think. Yeah. So we went to America and we played one game there, and then we went across to France and we played France twice, and then we came home. A couple of reasons why that tour stands out for me. That was the last tour that Kitty came on, so that was cool sharing that with her. That was also my first time playing France, and playing in France was something I've never experienced anything like it before.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I've never experienced anything like it before. I've never played in England, so I don't know what that's like.
Yep.
But I remember, doing our anthem and our haka, and we were getting booed.
Yeah.
They were so passionate. They were so passionate about women's rugby. We were the only game, and the stadium was packed. It was there was nearly like 20,000 people there, which we can't even get that here in New Zealand,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're so passionate about rugby over there, and they love their women's rugby team. And being so far away from home, it was a really cool challenge.
Yeah.
To tip them over at home. So we did it once, and then our last game we lost at the end, which was pretty stink. But yeah, so I'm really excited, and I hope I get the opportunity to get named and play them again. Yeah, it'll be a pretty cool way to finish our season.
Yeah, and that's cool. You got to do it with Kitty as well. That's definitely something special. I'd imagine. Like anything, obviously you've had a lot of success making these squads, but it has been a very long time coming. You mentioned injuries a lot, and I know you've been through quite more than your share of injuries. Talk us through about perhaps some of the injuries that you have been in, and the impact it would have had on your mental health, because to go through all those injuries and then still stick at it, what was the impact for you?
Yeah, so unfortunately I ruptured my ACLs 3 times, and they were all nearly back to back, so I was out for a really long time. My third ACL especially, that was the hardest. So in 2016, at the start of the year, I ruptured my knee I ruptured my ACL at a sevens tournament. So that was my second ACL. And then at the end of the year, I ruptured my other ACL. So I did rupture 2 ACLs in 1 year.
Sure.
Yeah. And so it was pretty devastating. Like anyone who's rehabbed from any injury knows how hard it is to go from literally square one all the way back to being able to play again. And so I had put a lot of work in over the year to rehab and to get myself ready to play Storm. We went on to win that year, and it was so cool. So like I went from rupturing my knee, rehabbing through the season, got to play Storm, we won, first sevens tournament, ruptured my knee again. And I was honestly devastated. I had like my first ever law exam a couple of days after I'd ruptured my knee. So I went into the exam and I was feeling so heavy. Like emotionally, I found it really hard to get myself back on track, to refocus for my exams. And then the rehab itself, third time around, it was really, really mentally draining. I remember going to see my surgeon for my follow-up appointment 2 weeks after my surgery, and he told me that I would never play rugby again, and if I was his daughter, he would never let me play. That's how bad my injury was. And I wasn't even expecting that when I walked in. I was 20 at the time, and I walked in with my crutches. Like, I took myself to my appointment. He told me that, and I thought, oh yeah, whatever, like, I've heard heaps of surgeons tell my mates that they can't play and they're still running around. So I didn't really think much of it. And then as soon as I started rehabbing, like, it took me a couple of months to walk again, which, usually it would take a week. So I was like, oh, okay, like, that took a lot longer than normal, and everything was just really hard. Like, nothing went smooth. Everything was a challenge. And what was even more hard was going down and, like, watching the girls play, knowing that I couldn't, be a part of all of that. So yeah, it was, it definitely had, the last injury had heaps of challenges, heaps of mental challenges as well. And that's honestly why I never thought I would make the Black Ferns or even make the Storm again. My goal was to just get to a point where I actually could make a decision about, actually, I do want to go back and play club, or I do want to go down and play touch with my mates, things like that. Like, I didn't have that option. So it was really tough. I was so lucky though that I had really, like, loyal friends who encouraged me to still come back, to still, try and rehab. I had, like, a really supportive family who were always there to get me through, because I honestly couldn't do it on my own. Like, it was just too hard.
Yeah. When I guess was the point when you, throughout your rehab, because it's really up and down. Like, some days you're like, yo, I got this. Other days are like, why are you even trying? Like, when was the point where you're like, nah, I'm gonna really make this work, and I'm gonna fight my way back, even if it's just to get back to club at least? Where was the point when you were like, you had to be content, realize where you're at, but then also know that this is not the end for me? Like, how did you get to that frame of mind?
Yeah, so with my last injury, I had my surgery in January, and it wasn't till December that I, literally nearly 12 months later, that moment happened for me. Yeah, so I had been rehabbing on my own, obviously, injured, you're on your own all the time. So I'd been on my own rehabbing. I'd been with one of my physios. She was trying to help me. And nothing was easy. And it was really, really easy to just get down and feel sorry for yourself, I guess. Like, I couldn't run. I still couldn't walk properly, things like that. And it was just really easy to kind of, like, just get into this spiral.
Yeah.
I tried to, like, focus more on uni, focus more on work. But really it didn't, refocusing my energy. It was okay, but it didn't really address the disappointment I was feeling with, my own injury.
Yeah.
And so I actually went and I spoke to a really great physio, Michelle Booth. She'd helped me with my first and second ACL ruptures. She's worked with high-level athletes, especially in league. She'd helped a lot of players down at Rifles Rehab from really big knee injuries, the likes of Anna Richards and Rochelle Martin. And yeah, I booked an appointment to go and see her, and we honestly just talked. She talked to me about, you know, whether or not I really wanted this, whether or not she told me that, you know, surgeons are surgeons. Surgeons do great things. They're not physios. They can't tell you whether or not you should play or you can stop playing. You should stop playing. You know, they do their surgery and that's it. You shouldn't take their word as oath.
Yeah.
And she said to me, there's no reason why I can't play again.
Yeah.
She gave me a few things to do, but she said, you know, I'd been through it already so many times. I basically already knew what to do.
Yeah.
And she said, it's really up to me, you know, whether or not I wanted it or not. And that was a moment that really changed my outlook on whether or not I wanted to really play again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I honestly just missed running around with my mates. That's all I missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And it's so cool to have someone like that you can just like chat to and get stuff off your chest. Because sometimes when you go through injuries, you're like, oh no, I don't want to say it to that person because they might think, no, it's all good, like, you know, but there's a part of you that's like, no, I actually need to get out the frustration that I'm feeling. So that's cool that you had someone like that. For people coming, like the next lot of players, I guess, or athletes coming through that might go through similar journey that you've been through, what's like some, I guess, tips or advice that you would not just give but that has actually helped you on your journey, and then in terms of like mental health as well, is there some things that you do that has or have done that has actually helped you get back into a better, positive, more frame of mind?
Yeah. I would say, especially when injuries happen, and I don't know if this applies to boys, but I know it definitely is more applicable to girls in rugby. I think not having all your eggs in one basket is really good. So it's really cool that we dedicate all this time to rugby. And I know a lot of young players really want to be, you know, in the Black Fern Sevens or want to be a Black Fern. But at the end of the day, if you get injured, what else are you focusing on?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to be, you know, a bit more diverse.
Yeah.
A lot of, well, actually, all of the players that that were in the teams when I first started playing, like nothing was professional. Everything was done because people loved it, and so they had these careers away from rugby or these hobbies or these interests. And so when something wasn't really going right, it was okay because they could kind of put their energy and time into other things that they were also really passionate about.
Yeah.
And so that's probably the first advice I would give, is to not put all your eggs in one basket. Find passions outside of rugby, whether it's
Cool.
study, work, something else, and follow that as well. The other advice I would give is, and I wish I knew this, you know, every time I got injured, is the only person who can really count you out is yourself. Doesn't really matter what other people say, what other people think. You know, you can always prove them wrong if you're willing to put in the hard work. And it does come with sacrifice, and it's really dumb because you're going to miss stuff all the time. But it's okay because you get to experience all these things that other people don't. And you get to make friendships, and you know, meet all these amazing people that you would never ever get to meet if you didn't play rugby. So it's about the destination and it's about the journey, but also the company along the way is as important.
No, that's so cool. Obviously, outside of footy, you have studied, and you're obviously in a completely different I guess career path off the field. What made you go towards that path? And obviously, for those that don't know, what is the what did you study at uni, and what made you choose to go down that path?
Yeah, so I graduated with a degree in law and arts, and I graduated last year. What chose me to pursue that career? I don't know. I think at the start I just chose it because it was something I was kind of good at. And as I kind of got to learn more about my degrees, I became a bit more passionate because, especially with law, it's something that applies to everyone. But I also really enjoy helping people, and I thought it was a way that I could make a positive impact in people's lives.
Yeah.
When I graduated last year, I really wasn't sure what area I wanted to specialize in. But I knew that I didn't want to do commercial law. So I still don't know what area I want to specialize in, but I just really want to somehow make an impact and help, just normal people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's so cool.
yeah, it's just a way that I can help people.
Yeah.
With the skills and the talents that I have.
Yeah. And that's cool knowing that whenever that time comes for you to hang up your boots, that there's still another pathway, but you're just as passionate about it. So no, that's so
100%.
Cool. But yeah, no, I just want to say thank you, obviously, for your time today. It's been cool seeing your journey in general, but you've inspired me in your journey, and I know there'll be a lot of girls that will be inspired as well, to I guess see where you go to next. Looking forward to seeing what the future holds for you. Is there anything in particular you're most excited about in these next coming years?
I'm really excited about playing, or hopefully playing in a World Cup. When that goes ahead, who knows? But I think in the short term, I'm really excited to get a few games with the Black Ferns to end our year, especially with our 3 young debutantes from the Storm. I'm really excited for little Petu coming through, and even more excited for Liana and Maya, who are from Rifles. I think it's just even more special because you see young players come through, and you see the hard work that they put in, and you see their families drop them off to trainings, and you see them in the stands watching their games and making all these sacrifices, and then to be rewarded, but also to watch them, flourish, and hopefully we'll get to watch them or play alongside them as they debut as well. It's going to be a really special moment to treasure, and I know that's going to be dumb that their families won't be there to share that moment with them, but we'll be there to share that moment with them, and we'll make sure it's a good one. So that's what I'm really excited about right now.
That's so cool, and I can't wait to see obviously your guys' games. It's been a long time since the Black Ferns have played, so really looking forward to that. Is there any thing you want to say before we close off, or if there's any people you want to thank for your journey in particular?
I don't want to name names because you start naming names and you start forgetting names.
And they'll be like, "Oh, true, you didn't." Oh,
yeah. But like anytime, like anything. So I would like to honestly thank my club, my teammates, managers, coaches from our awesome club that make sure that women's rugby is always acknowledged, celebrated and supported. I'd like to thank my union, Auckland, for always believing in us, always giving us a good crack. Without those people who have really laid the foundation for a lot of us, we wouldn't be able to go on and follow all these aspirations that we have. So
no, that's so cool. And I'm excited to see where to next for you. Obviously you're surrounded by a good bunch of people, not just your friends, but obviously you come from a great family as well, so Thanks heaps for your time today, Sis. Really do appreciate it. And if your journey inspires at least one person, then obviously all this was worth it. So yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, sis. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me.
No worries.